From the director of Terminator 2 and Aliens comes the Academy Award-winning Abyss, starring Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
A whole new world awaits to be discovered, but time is running out. James Cameron's fantastic cinematic journey into the unknown. A network television premiere tomorrow at 9 on Channel 4, The Abyss.
The famous vampire count Dracula is the subject of the first in a new series of the South Bank show. That's tomorrow on Central at 10:50. Whilst John Voight stars in Runaway Train tonight at 9:55. That's coming up just after the news.
Good evening, the news and sport from ITN. Tonight's headlines. The Bosnian peace talks are under threat as UN forces come under attack. Airlifted out of limbo, the RAF flies 17 Palestinians out of no man's land. And the hunt intensifies for the security guard who disappeared with £1 million.
And tonight's main sports story, Brian Giggs blasts the favourites, Manchester United, through to the last 16 of the Cup.
Fighting intensified in Croatia today, shattering a year-long ceasefire. It happened as the politicians were talking about how to secure peace in neighbouring Bosnia. Croatian troops are reported to have killed 21 Serb militiamen and a French peacekeeper was seriously wounded. The Serbs responded by raiding United Nations arms dumps for weapons. Both sides have now rearmed and redeployed across the region.
For the second day running, Croatian and Serb forces battled, pounding each other's positions with mortars and artillery around the towns of Zadar and Mostar. The UN forces, supposedly the buffer between the two sides, were left helpless. At one stage, they too were shelled, a French soldier critically injured, and the humbling of the UN's present role made complete by further Serb raids on their stores to retrieve confiscated weapons. In Geneva, Croatian President Tudjman came to talk peace in Bosnia, having left Zagreb only after authorizing his forces' role in the fighting of the last 48 hours. We didn't start it, they did, he said, in an all too familiar Balkan posture. The Geneva delegations may not enthusiastically embrace the peace faith to which they all claim recent conversion, but on this most difficult day, when the threat of a walkout by one or another seemed likely, they all stayed. There are those who believe that Serbian President Milosevic wears the mantle of peace like an ill-fitting suit, uncomfortably. But he and President Tudjman were brought together, they talked, and tonight they jointly agreed to try and end hostilities. It was the leader of the Bosnian Serbs who summed up the mood.
We are not going to leave the conference, although we have enough reason to leave the conference, both Yugoslav and Serbian delegation, but we are not going to leave it because for the sake of peace.
That the leaders of Serbia and Croatia met and agreed to try and bring about an end to this latest fighting is a tribute to the forcefulness of the would-be peace brokers, Cyrus Vance and Lord Owen. Their hope now is that all delegations will remain here for as long as it takes to try and bring about a final and lasting settlement. Colin Baker, ITN, Geneva.
British helicopters have moved 17 Palestinian deportees out of no man's land in southern Lebanon. 4 need medical treatment, the others were mistakenly expelled by Israel. The Mercy mission coincided with an Israeli airstrike against Lebanon. It was launched after 2 Israeli soldiers were killed in a bomb attack.
After 6 hours of negotiations, RAF Wessex helicopters with Red Cross markings finally loaded 17 of the deported Palestinians to take them back to Israel, leaving behind nearly 400 who've been stranded in no man's land for more than a month with little food and water and few medicines. There were prayers and militant Islamic slogans of defiance from those left behind. At first, none would leave, saying they must all be repatriated together as demanded by the United Nations. Red Cross negotiators persuaded the 17 to board the helicopters. They were brought to the Israeli port of Haifa. 4 were taken to hospital. The rest, who were originally wrongly deported, are being returned to prison. 2 more, entitled to leave, decided to remain, as they put it, with their brothers, prompting a scornful response from the Israelis.
We are going out of our way to allow any humanitarian steps to be taken, and then those same people block it. I think it's outrageous.
United Nations mediator Chinmaya Garak Khan has been increasing the pressure on Israel's Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin to take the deportees back or face sanctions. The country's Supreme Court will meet to rule on the issue on Monday. Israel's Supreme Court could resolve this crisis and rescue the deadlocked Middle East peace talks simply by ruling that the deportations were illegal. But the last thing the Israeli government wants is these Palestinians returning home as heroes. Glenn Glaser, ITN, Tel Aviv.
A policeman has been shot dead in Londonderry, the first member of the security forces to be killed in Northern Ireland this year. He was shot at point-blank range in the back of the head in a street crowded with Saturday shoppers.
Police had been called out to the city's main shopping centre. There had been a report of shoplifting. In Northern Ireland, it's routine for the police to be cautious on any call-out, no matter how routine. Constable Michael Ferguson took position on the pavement outside the shop. Like all other policemen here, he was armed, but he had no chance to defend himself. The gunman emerged from crowds of shoppers. He crept up behind Constable Ferguson, pulled out a handgun, and shot him in the head at point-blank range. A car nearly knocked down the killer as he ran across the street. There was panic amongst the crowds of shoppers. A doctor had been nearby, but the first aid was in vain. Constable Ferguson died later in hospital. He was 21 and had joined the police force less than 2 years ago. There followed an all-too-familiar routine. An area sealed off, the bomb squad called in to search for any possible booby traps. Constable Ferguson was the first member of the security forces to be murdered this year in the Troubles. A senior officer said the gunman was a cold-blooded killer who used shoppers as cover to escape from the scene. Andrew Simmons, ITN, Northern Ireland.
Police have charged a man this evening with carrying out the minicab bombing near Downing Street last October. Patrick Murphy from Southall in London has been held under the Prevention of Terrorism Act since Wednesday. No one was hurt in the blast, which happened after a minicab driver was forced to take a bomb to Whitehall, then abandon his car. The Kremlin says President Yeltsin is to hold his first summit with President Clinton in the near future. It will be held in a neutral country. No date was given. Moscow says Mr. Clinton called Mr. Yeltsin to promise support for Russia's democratic reforms. Securicor has offered a £50,000 reward as the hunt continues for a security guard who disappeared with £1 million. Edward Marr from Colchester vanished with his common-law wife and their young son.
At the Mars home in a quiet Essex cul-de-sac today, a deceptive air of normality, the car's still in the drive and the light outside on. But for the moment, the police have little idea as to the whereabouts of Edward Marr, his family, and around £1 million. The neighbours providing few clues as to the kind of couple they were.
We didn't know them at all. We never spoke to them all the time they were here. Kept much to themselves, and that's it. Didn't invade their privacy, they didn't invade ours.
I wouldn't say unfriendly, just not receptive at all. You know, they wouldn't return a smile or a good morning or anything.
Mr. Marr arrived at this Lloyds Bank yesterday morning for a routine delivery. Whilst a colleague went inside, he disappeared with the van and the money. The van later found abandoned and empty a few streets away. The police cannot quite say it yet, but it shows all the signs of being a textbook inside job. Remarkably similar to the case of Florida Phil, a security guard who disappeared 4 years ago with just under £1 million. He has never been found. It has been suggested the Mars may have caught a ferry to Sweden, Norway, or perhaps Germany. But police are saying today that because of the length of the crossing time, they see that as an unlikely means of escape. Tom Bradby, ITN in Felixstowe.
Detectives have seized £2 million in forged £50 notes after raiding a printing works in North London. Police say it's the most significant counterfeit find for 10 years. None of the fake notes is thought to have reached the streets. The man has been charged under the Counterfeiting and Forgery Act. A mare has been mutilated and killed in what police say is the latest in a series of frenzied attacks on horses. Around 30 animals in southern England have suffered appalling mutilations over the past few months. Many have had to be put down. This report from our South of England correspondent, Robert Hall.
Heightened police activity in the home counties tonight, renewed efforts to trap the attacker who struck at stables throughout the south of England. At least 30 animals have suffered mutilation or sexual assault. This weekend's attack in Hampshire was the worst yet. Mountbatten, a 10-year-old mare, had been taken to her stable at 8 last night. She was found dead this morning with knife wounds to her neck and hindquarters.
I just feel revolted at the thought of the kind of person it can be. I just feel total anger, and I would love, hopefully once they caught this person, I would love to see what kind of person it is, how they're psychologically, what kind of person it is that would cause a person to do such a thing to a lovely animal.
As Mountbatten was taken away to undergo a post-mortem, Hampshire police said they knew enough to confirm a link with earlier attacks that have horrified animal lovers nationwide. As police step up their regular checks on stables, one theory is that the attacker may be used to dealing with animals.
Most normal people are approaching a horse in a field, it will run away. Whereas the person attacking these horses has some way of attracting the horse's attention and keeping the horse's attention while he attacks it.
Horse watch schemes and extra security measures reduce the risk of attacks, but greater public vigilance may provide the breakthrough that'll prevent further tragedy. Robert Hall, ITN, Hampshire.
Now it's over to Graham Miller for the sport.
Manchester United marched into the last 16 of the FA Cup with a 1-0 victory over second division Brighton. But the Cup favourites had to wait until 14 minutes from time against the side they beat in a Wembley replay 10 years ago. Elsewhere, potential giant killers were themselves cut down to size.
10 years ago, Brighton embarrassed Manchester United at Wembley. For much of today's rematch, they threatened to do the same. But after Bissett wasted their best chance, United's Ryan Giggs began to show why in Manchester they see a striking resemblance to George Best in the teenage winger. And it was Giggs who hit a clean winner after 76 minutes. After that, Brighton faded, United coasted. Blackburn's £16 million dream team took on £67,000 worth of third division journeymen, and Crewe's fate was sealed once Wegley had turned in the first goal. Crewe only threatened to upset the odds once. Blackburn survived the scramble and profited from an opposition gamble to replace defenders with attackers. Newell got their belated second with just 12 minutes left. And Crewe's normally dependable keeper Grey Goose lost track of a wild clearance from his own defender. Kevin Moran made it 3. After a couple of minutes, Aston Villa looked to be on their way against Wimbledon. Dwight Yorke unmarked and unchallenged, unusual for Wimbledon's rugged defence. But the 88 Cup winners are nothing if not lucky cup fighters. Gary Elkins shot off the post, onto Spink's back and in. Nottingham Forest's problems in the league were forgotten today. They struggled in the cup, Middlesbrough taking the lead from Falconer's header. But Neil Webb's first goal since he went back into Brian Clough's arms, enough to earn Forest a reprieve. Derby went to Kenilworth Road and gave Luton a thrashing. The best of their 5 was Mark Pembridge's third, and the first hat-trick in his career. He signed for Derby last summer from Luton.
Elsewhere, Ipswich kept up their hunt for the treble, coming from behind to beat Tranmere of Division 1. Jason Dazelle got the important equaliser as Merseyside's cup hopes were ended for the season. And Alan Cork soured Hartlepool's week. A reprieve in the High Court yesterday, but today Cork dumped them out of the cup. In Scotland, Tommy Coyne's goal moved Celtic up to 3rd place in the Premier Division. The big game between Rangers and Aberdeen was called off just before kick-off. Wigan achieved the first part of their attempt at a rugby league clean sweep by winning the season's first major cup, the Regal Trophy. They beat Bradford Northern at Ellen Road this afternoon by 15 points to 8.
Wigan walked out as odds-on favourites to win the competition for a record 6th time, but their first try didn't come until just before half-time. Martin Appiah setting up the teenager Jason Robinson. Bradford battled hard to stay in touch, but when Sean Edwards powered over for his 28th try of the season, the Yorkshireman's pass took on awesome proportions. This incident near the end did nothing for either side's reputation. But Bradford did put it behind them to score a consolation try, Steve McGowan going over. In the end, though, it was Wigan's day, Dean Bell lifting the club's 18th major trophy in 10 years.
The big shock of the day came in the 5th round of the Welsh Rugby Union Challenge Cup. St Peter's, a junior side from Division 3, knocked out mighty Cardiff at the Arms Park. The 5 times winners went out 16-14 to their unheralded neighbours from the Welsh capital. In the Pilkington Cup in England's 2nd Division Waterloo march on. Austin Healy's try helped the Mad Oral scalp to that of Bath this season. Cricket and Graham Gooch must wait to find out if he's joined the elite group of cricketers who've scored 100 hundreds. after his undefeated ton against India's under-25s. Cricket officials will decide next month whether Gooch's century against a rebel South African side 10 years ago should count as a first-class one. Philip de Freitas, meanwhile, is doubtful for next week's first test against India after aggravating an injury. 17-year-old Magdalena Maleva, the youngest of the three tennis sisters, helped make tennis history today. She joined Manuela and Katerina in the last 16 of the Australian Open at Melbourne, the first time that's been achieved in a Grand Slam tournament.
And that's the news and sport this Saturday from Graham, me and all the team at ITN. Good night.
Good night.
Good evening. Well, yes, another stormy night across the country. Gusts of 60 miles per hour for most of us, but the worst of the winds looks as though they're going to be through Northern Ireland, across southern Scotland, Northern England, perhaps even North Wales. Gusts of over 80 miles per hour, and inevitably that means structural damage, trees falling over, that sort of thing. With it, lots of rain. We can see how the Met Office computer has dealt with that rain through the night tonight. Two main bands, one to the south, one to the far north. That one rushing away, clearing southern England. But as the showers come in towards northwest Scotland, turning increasingly to sleet and snow. So let's start then from about North Wales northwards. Still very windy, possibly stormy tomorrow morning. A lot of showers piling into the west, and those showers as we go through the day will be turning increasingly wintry. Down to the south and central and southeastern parts, a lot of dry, quite bright weather early on, but as we go through the afternoon, cloud thickening, and once again you'll find pulses of rain running across South Wales towards London by about tea time. As I said, plenty of showers, even blizzard conditions in the north and northwest. Bitterly cold in the north, I would imagine, temperatures at best 4 or 5 Celsius. Down in the south, you'll see temperatures much as we saw today, say in London around 10, which is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So a reminder, a stormy night tonight, central parts of the country, and a cold day tomorrow.
Simple Weather, sponsored by Legal & General.
Hello, well, pretty miserable out there at the moment, but hopefully clearer weather will start to spread in from the northwest around midnight, bringing colder, breezier conditions for us down to 3 or 4 Celsius. Then a cold, bright start to tomorrow, plenty of sunshine around, but a moderate westerly wind will be blowing, so wrap up and there'll be the odd shower as well. Not much change for the afternoon, generally cool, bright and breezy. That's it from me. Charlie will be back tomorrow.
9 o'clock Monday. Head over heels.
For many of us, the rate of social change is dizzying.
Catherine is dizzy for different reasons.
You've got a crush on Curly, then?
She'll have no trouble getting work. Her bones are good.
Have a lovely daughter. She's definitely head over heels.
Modelling's my idea of heaven.
Really? Could have fooled me. And will her romantic dreams be shattered when she meets one of her idols? Head over heels. 9 o'clock Monday on Central. Are you looking for something completely different? Something very unusual?
Yeah.
Well, look no further.
Not much, does it?
Take a closer look.
What's going on?
You'll just have to take a look yourself. Mondays at 10:40, The Good Sex Guide. It's what every household needs.